Welcome back to the Painting Coach, where I show you how to take what's in the box and make it look like what's on the box. In this week's tutorial, we're painting a knob on Smasha Squig from the new Beast Snaggas set. Alright, let's paint this knob on Smasha Squig, and apologies in advance if my voice is a little huskier than usual. I'm suffering from some seasonal allergies, shall we say. So what I've done is I've built it, and I've not glued the knob down so I can take him off. It gives me some nice contact points there as well for when I want to glue him on later. But really, it just makes it easier to paint. And what we're going to do is we're going to paint the silver first. Now we don't have to be too careful with this, so I'm just taking some iron hand steel. I'm going to paint all the bits that I want to be metal, so that includes anything that I might want to be bronze or gold. I'm just going to paint everything with this iron hand steel. Now there is quite a fair bit of metallic elements on the model, so just take your time and work your way around, get them all done, make sure you don't miss any. In terms of prime, I've primed this black first, and then I've kind of sprayed white, and I've tried to focus on the rider with the white, because I think it's just easier to paint them that way. Like I said, there's lots of metallics on here, so if you're not sure, check the box art, check the Games Workshop website, and you can pick up all the bits that you need to have silver. So I'm going to finish that off cam, and we'll come back and we'll shade it next. Once we've got all the silver done, obviously not forgetting to do the rider as well, I'm going to shade it down, but I want it to be a little bit of a dirtier silver, rather than, or dirtier metallic I should say, rather than like a clean one. So the colour I'm going to use is Agrax Earthshade. And I don't want to let it pool too much, I just want it to basically tint the metal into a little brown shade. So as you can see there, I'm just working it all the way around, and it's actually giving quite a nice effect. So I'm not putting a huge amount on, don't flood the model. So cover all the silver metallics that you've just painted with this. Obviously make sure the silver's dry first, and then we'll come back and we'll highlight it, and then once we've highlighted, we'll start to put some different colours in there to get some tone variation, and some golds and some bronzes as well. Once we're happy the Agrax Earthshade is dry, we're going to highlight all the metallics with some chrome from Vallejo Model Air. And this is as simple as kind of catching those raised sharp edges and just creating that highlight. If you've got one where it's like a piston, you can paint the whole thing with the chrome, because obviously that's going to be going in and out, so it should be a little bit cleaner than any of the other parts. So don't forget to do the rider as well. I've just noticed it's not quite dry in there, so I'm going to let it dry a little more, finish the rest of this off cam, and then we'll come back and like I said, we're going to start to colour some of the metal. We'll use contrast paints for that. So to give some of the metallics some additional colour, we're going to use contrast paints like I said. So for some gold elements, so for example we've got this glyph here, I'm going to use some Nazdreg Yellow. And what that'll do is it'll take the highlighting from the silver underneath, and it'll also add its own kind of shading in as it dries. So any areas you want to be gold, just use Nazdreg Yellow on them, let that dry, and then we'll come back and do some bronze next. And for the bronze I'm going to use Gryph Hound Orange, and what you may find with this is it's a little light with just one coat, so maybe add a second coat once it's dry, just to get that kind of orangey bronze colour. And again, it's going to pick up the highlighting and the shading we've done underneath, as well as add its own in there as well, which is good. And I think we'll probably add quite a bit on this leg here, just to give us some variation and break up that silver quite nicely. So get that done with contrast paint. If you want to use different colour contrast paints to give different colour metals, then by all means feel free to do that. We'll jump onto the skin of the squig next. Once you've kind of done all those metallics and you're happy with how they've come out, we're going to base the squig And the colour I'm going to use for this is Khorne Red. And I'm just going to look to paint probably about 90% of the skin or the fleshy areas. Now obviously be careful around the bits you've already finished. Be careful around things like straps as well, because they're really easy to do with contrast paints. And what we're looking to do is probably paint to about there, because obviously the belly of the squig is a lighter colour. So by painting to about there, we can then come back and we can get a nice blend between the red and the lighter belly colour. So get all the squig base coated with the Khorne Red. I think there's some parts on the ork as well, the rider, some armour panels, or armour spikes which are red. So get those done too, and then we'll come back in and start to highlight. We'll jump straight into highlighting the red because we want to go for quite a bright red colour on the squig. So I've mixed 50-50 mix of Evil Sun Scarlett and Khorne Red, and I'm roughly highlighting across everything on the squig, only leaving the Khorne Red in those deepest recesses. So what this will do, will give us a nice transition into a brighter red. So we'll probably use like Evil Sun Scarlett as the main highlight colour. And every time we kind of add a highlight, we'll be adding less and less as we build it up to a nice orangey red for the squig flesh. So do this all over. Like I said, leave that Khorne Red in the deepest recesses. Like a folder now, I'll fix that mistake I made just with a little bit of chrome. And then we'll come back and we'll get to work on the next highlight. I'm going to continue building that red up with some Evil Sun Scarlett. Now I've gone to a smaller brush here, just so that I've got a little bit more control when it comes to some of these recesses. Now obviously I could paint it quicker with a bigger brush, but I just want that little bit of extra control that I'll get with the smaller brush. So we're looking really for all the raised areas. Again, don't worry too much about the crown there because we're going to be doing that in a darker purple kind of colour. But we want to get all these areas around the mouth there, just like that. And also the kind of around the back on the leg. Just to build it up. And this kind of Evil Sun Scarlett will be the kind of the vibrant red. And we'll add some highlights to it to set everything off. But take your time with this one, and then we'll come back and we'll do some more highlighting next. So we're carrying on building up a nice bright red, so we want to carry that forward with some Wild Rider Red. And again, I'm using the smaller brush because what I'm looking to do now is I'm just looking to kind of highlight those folds and those creases where they're kind of exaggerated, all the kind of growths and spots we want to do as well. Also around where we've got kind of bits of machinery and parts like that, all helps add to the effect that we're creating. So get that done, and then when we come back we'll have a little look at putting an extreme highlight in, but that extreme highlight will also be the first kind of colour that we use to get down to do the belly of the beast. So we're going to go to Kislev Flesh for the kind of extreme highlight, and I'm going to use this two ways. So firstly, like I said, we've got these kind of folds, so we're going to just highlight them, the kind of highest areas along here, and you want to make this a fairly fine highlight, just in like that. Apologies if you can hear a lot of noise outside, I'm not really sure what's going on the street today. So that's the first way I'm going to do it, and obviously I'm going to do it all over the red. The second way as well, I'm going to get a bigger brush and I'm going to paint all of the belly with this Kislev Flesh as well. So just ping up to the red. I'm not worrying about blending them just yet. I'll show you how to do that later. What I'm just doing now is just get a nice full coat of Kislev Flesh. Probably going to need 2 or 3 coverings just to get it on there. I've probably thinned mine a little too much, but you thin yours to what you're comfortable to. get that done, and then we'll come back in and we'll start to work on that belly before we blend it all in. Once that Kislev Flesh is dry, I want to just shade it a little. I'm going to use Guilliman Flesh contrast paint for this. I'm just using a smaller brush again just to kind of get into those recesses around any sort of growths that we've got on there. Just generally following the shape. It's very controlled rather than washing the whole thing. And then the other thing I want to do as well is with the knob rider. He's got this kind of the word escapes me, skin here, so I want to just paint the inside of that with the Guilliman Flesh as well, and just doing this over the kind of the prime is a nice easy quick way of getting that colouring we want on there. And obviously we'll paint the outside differently in a bit. Next up, I want to highlight with some Flayed One Flesh. Now I'm not making sure I haven't got very much on the brush at all, and again we're just looking for those kind of big areas, and also where we've got the kind of the ridges down there as well. So a nice easy step that, you know, we don't need to do too much of this, just get the shape of some of these muscles, and then we'll come back and we'll blend that all in. Okay, so let's look at blending everything together now. This is the kind of effect we're looking for. So let's have a look at how we achieve that. So if we look over on this side here, what I'm doing is I'm using Blood Angel's red contrast paint. Now make sure I haven't got too much on my brush, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to stipple or dot along the line where the two colours meet. I want to keep these dots fairly separate. I'm going to take my time over this because it's can be quite a therapeutic exercise for you. So just take your time. See, lots of dots. Show you on the tail as well. Lots of dots, kind of close in to where the colours meet, but also straying a little bit further afield, which is all good. So what I want to do is I want to build up this first example, and then I'm going to come back and we'll show you how to actually build this up further and how to blend the kind of top half in so that you've just got this stippling towards the bottom. A really nice effect. Once we finish that first round of dots, we're going to do the same thing again, but what we're doing is we're just focusing closer to where the two different colours meet. So we're focusing towards the line there. And what that means, we're still dotting, and when we put some of these dots in, it's going to go in the same place that we've already put dots. That's absolutely fine. But because we're just taking our time, what we'll start to do is build up a solid colour kind of between the two areas, just like you can see starting to come there, but also with this the thinner colours underneath just starting to blend a little bit. So I'm going to finish this, I'm then going to do it again focusing along that middle line, and that should be enough to get the effect I'm looking for. So do the same yourself. Again, don't worry if it doesn't work out the way you envisage it first time. You can always just paint over it and start again, but I'm happy with the progress I'm making there. So we'll get on another layer to finish it, and then we'll come in and start to work on the rest of the squig. With that done, I'm going to focus on the kind of hard part of the head here. Now this is a darker purple, so I'm just going to use Shyish Purple on this, and I'm just going to paint it around those kind of harder areas there. Just being careful not to stray across anything I've already finished. So take your time, and then once you're happy that you've got that done, we'll come back, let it dry, and we'll give it some highlights. Then while I've got the Shyish Purple out, the other thing I'm going to do is do the pelt on the rider. And pelt is the word I was trying in vain to think of earlier. So just cover this with the Shyish Purple. Again, don't let it pool too much. and we'll come back. We'll highlight it all once it's dry. To highlight that, I'm just going to use a little bit of pink horror just to catch those kind of raised edges. Thinned it down a little. Try and keep it thin. That's probably a little too thick in some places. I've applied that. And the other thing I'm going to do when I've got this pink horror on my brush is I'm going to paint the kind of the lower lip area as well. And you can see there's not too much difference in terms of that and the colour of the red flesh, but it just gives a little bit of pinkiness to that bottom gum. So get all that done, highlight as much or as little as you want, and then we'll just come back and highlight that lip. To highlight that lip, I'm going to dip back into that Flayed One Flesh I've got on the palette. Just very thin lines, he says, painting quite a thick line. So I'm going to go back in and tidy those up a little bit, but just kind of catching. And then just a little horizontal line to pick everything up. So nice and simple and straightforward. Get it done, and I think we'll come back and have a look at the leather next. For all the leather, and again, don't forget this includes the rider as well as the strap here. Very easy, just a little bit of snakebite leather and just work it over those lighter colours. And then let that dry. And if you want to put another coat on, I would go ahead and do so. Otherwise, I'm pretty happy with that leather effect. Like I said, on both the strapping on the squig as well as the rider. If you've made any mistakes, so for example, if you've spilt onto some of the undercoat you already painted, then just repaint it with either Korax White or Wraithbone to get it back to where you need it, and then go over it again. I think next up we'll drop onto the banner here. So the colour we're going to use for that is Averland Sunset. So I'm going to give it a first coat, and looks okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let it dry fully, and then I'm going to give it a second coat. So once I've done that, we'll come back and we'll shade it, but let it dry before you go back with your second coat. There's quite a bit of detailing in terms of stud work around the kind of the yellow. So what I'm going to do is just take Guilliman Flesh contrast paint, not too much on my brush, and I'm just going to paint it around all of that. Now, don't worry if you're a bit messy. Go in and tidy up with Averland Sunset. That's what I'm going to do once it's dry, just to get some crisp shadows on there. And then we'll come back after that and we'll give it a highlight. And the other thing as well I painted the eyes with Averland Sunset just to give them a base, because I'm going to use the same highlight colour that I use on this to paint the eyes. Highlighting up that yellow, we're going to take some Flash Gitz yellow. And really what we're looking to do is just pull the brush along those edges to create a nice sharp highlight. Nice and easy, nice and straightforward. And for the eye, I'm just going to paint the Flash Gitz yellow over. Nice and simple. There's quite a lot of claws on this model. So you've got claws on the beast itself, and then claws on the orc rider. And all I'm going to do is just use some Pterodon turquoise and paint this over. And that'll give you a nice, simple way of doing the claws. So paint all the claws like that way. One's on the pelt as well as the orc's fingernails. I'll see how it dries, and maybe we'll give it a little highlight as well. See how we go. Before we move on to the teeth, I just want to paint the mouth, or the inside of the mouth, and I'm using Shyish Purple with that, of the knob rider. And I'm going to highlight that with pink horror, and then once I've done that I can do all the teeth together then, so I can do the teeth on the rider and on the beast. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to base the teeth, and I'm going to use a Shabty bone for that. So just be careful obviously of any bits you've already finished. Just work that Ishabdi bone in. We're going to put a shade over it, so don't worry if the kind of the teeth on the inside of the mouth, it looks like you've just got a mass of the Ishabdi bone colour, because we'll clear that up. If you do touch the edge like that, all you need to do is just clean your brush off, and then you can just paint it away as though it never happened. So get all the teeth like that, don't forget the rider, and we'll come back and shade them. To shade those teeth, just apply some Agrax Earthshade. Now, you can be fairly liberal with this because you want to make sure you get it into those recessed areas. So just work it in there like that. Let it dry, and we'll come back and highlight it. To highlight the teeth, once that Agrax Earthshade is dry, you're going to take some Screaming Skull. Make sure you've got a good point on your brush. What you're looking to do is you're just looking to paint some thin lines going from the bottom up to the top. Now, a lot of the time, the shape of the model will help you do this, because it'll kind of have lots of lumps and bumps to guide you up there. So get that done on all the teeth, and that's pretty much the Smasha Squig done. So we're going to put him to a side, and we're going to focus on the knob rider next. So if you've been following along and doing all the same bits on the knob the same way we've done them on the Smasha Squig, it should look something similar to this. If it doesn't, then go back in the video and have a look and see what bits you've missed off. But essentially what we're going to do, I'm going to paint the boots, and these are going to be black, so the colour I'm using for that is Abaddon Black. Nice and simple, not much to see. But really want to make sure that you don't go over anything you've already finished. So work your way around slowly, get it done, and then we'll come back and highlight it next. To highlight the black, we're just going to use some Mechanicus Standard Grey, and what we're looking for, not too much on your brush, and we're just looking to catch those kind of big raised areas where we've got the straps going through the tighteners and all the folds. Basically nice and simple, nice and straightforward, not too much to do here. So do that on both boots, and we'll do the pants next. I'm going to base the pants with some Steel Legion Drab. I'm also going to use that for the base rim, I think. So in terms of what this is going to be, just again real simple stuff, just painting the trousers. Now we are going to shade these, so just get a nice even coverage over all the trousers. And apologies if you can hear that engine revving outside, not quite sure what's going on. Get that nice coverage over, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to shade it down. To shade the pants, I'm just going to use some Agrax Earthshade, and I'm going to drop this into those recesses. I'm just probably going to cover all of them, the pants, with it, just to make sure that there's nothing missed. So nice and easy, nice and straightforward. Get that done, and then we'll come back, and depending on how this settles, we may repair the Steel Legion Drab, we may just go straight to a highlight. We'll give that Steel Legion Drab a little bit of a highlight, and the colour I'm going to use for that's Karak Stone. Just make sure my brush is actually dry there. And we're just looking to catch those raised parts, so like all the creases, just kind of the hard edges, just like that. So just work your way around and find them. There's not many. That's the pants kind of done. So we'll move on. We'll do the armor plates next, and then we'll finish off with the flesh. So for the armor plates, again, we're going to go for a kind of a dirty look on them. Now, if you have used the same priming technique as I have, then you should have some white plates. If not, just use some Corax white just to get them back to that white colour. And what I'm doing is I'm just going to paint them with Agrax Earthshade. Then I'm going to clean my brush off so it's just damp. Then I'm going to take some of that Agrax Earthshade away, just so it gives us that kind of dirty effect. So do that on all the armour pads. Clean the brush away, just a damp brush, and just move that aside. Nice and simple. When it comes to highlighting that white, once the shade is dry, just take some white scar. Now, very little on my brush. And what I'm looking to do is kind of just where those edges are, just dot with the white scar, because it'll give quite a damaged highlight, I guess, in there, just like that. And you can pull it along the edges if you want. Same along the kind of the knee pad there. So just work your way around all the kind of the white armour, just some little dots on it to indicate wear and tear, and then we'll get the flesh done and we're finished. Just before we throw ourselves into the flesh, I just want to get the eye and the bionic eye done, just with some Blood Angels red contrast paint onto both of them. Nice and easy like that. I can paint all that with the green when we base that next. So the colour we're going to use on the flesh is Orruk Flesh, and this is a nice easy step. We're just going to paint this over all the flesh, obviously being careful of anything we've already finished. Now I've thinned it down a fair bit, so probably going to need 2 coats. So not a huge amount for you to see me do here, so just get that done, and then we'll come back and we'll have a look at shading it and then highlighting it to finish off. Once we've got a nice dry bit of coverage, going to take some Biel Tan Green. That's far too much, and we're going to just cover all of the flesh with the Biel Tan Green. Make sure I spread it out and that it doesn't, pool in just one place like it did to start with there. So put this over everything, obviously being careful around those bits you finished, especially the lighter areas. Let this dry, and then what we'll do is we'll come back in and we'll get the highlights done before we finish up. And then once that Biel Tan's dry, nice and simple, back to that Orruk Flesh. And we're just looking to highlight the big kind of groups of muscles, leaving that Biel Tan in the recesses. You're looking to shade big groups of muscles, so don't worry about striations. Now this has gone a little thin on the palette, so I'm probably going to just take 2 or 3 coats to cover it all up, but it all depends on how thick your paint is for this stage. Obviously the thinner the better really, but that's just it'll just take a bit longer to get everything done. So nice and straightforward, work your way around, enjoy this because we're nearly done, and then we'll come back and we'll give it the final highlight next. To finish off the highlighting, we're going to take some Krieg Khaki, and as with all the other kind of highlighting, just make sure there's not too much on your brush, and we're going to catch those most raised areas around the mouth, and then we're going to just follow the musculature down again. If you're not sure, check the box art, but I'll finish the rest of this off cam. But it's nice and simple highlighting. We'll pull it all together and have a look at it on the turntable next. And there we have it. This knob on Smasha Squig is done and ready for the tabletop. I really hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please leave a like and a comment down below. It really does help me make sure I'm creating the kind of content that you want to see. If you'd like to support me and the channel, you can do so using the links in the description. There's a link for my Patreon where you get exclusive access to me via the Discord, as well as a monthly live frequently asked questions show on YouTube, some exclusive content and some giveaways. There's links for Goblin Gaming where you can get up to 20% off all your wargaming needs, as well as my Amazon affiliate links where you can see some of my recommended equipment. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.